Let's get started. So good afternoon, everyone. We're here today to discuss Medical Technology Enterprise Consortium, also known as MTEC. And MTEC identifies, funds, and supports medical technology innovation that improves military and civilian health. We are very pleased to have with us today a representative from MTEC, Dr. Lauren Palestrini, who is the Chief Science Officer at MTEC. She'll provide an overview and description of the benefits of MTEC membership, for which she's a member, which UB is a member, sorry. If you have any questions, as we just mentioned, you can put them in the chat, and then I can ask them once you're done with your presentation. So welcome.
Great. Thank you so much for inviting me to talk. I'm very excited to, tell you all about MTEC and ensure that you all are taking advantage of everything that we have to offer. And I think this is actually really great timing because we are a slice of the pie. We are offering funding opportunities, Department of Defense funded funding opportunities, and there are several that have already rolled out this week and several more to follow. So I think really great timing to get you guys educated about MTEC and kind of start opening the dialogue so that you can ask questions and take advantage of some of these funding opportunities. So I am going to go into full screen mode here. All right, so MTEC, I think, really is all about advancing medical innovation for the warfighter. I really do think that we are a model for military-civilian partnerships, and excited to tell you a little bit about that today. We are in the prototyping space, so we are all about providing funding and wraparound services so that we can advance technology maturation and improve the readiness and health of military and civilians. To date, through MTEC, we've done $1.3 billion in federal funding in the R&D space, and then in addition to that, have gotten nearly $1 billion in follow-on funding to that. We do operate under something called an other transaction agreement. This is directly between MTEC, which is a nonprofit, and the U.S. Army Medical Research and Development Command at Fort Detrick, which is now merged into the Defense Health Agency, the DHA. But the OTA really is a flexible, collaborative model for the government to engage with extramural or non-governmental partners. I am assuming most of you are familiar with grants and contracts and cooperative agreements. Those are kind of the typical ways that most folks are familiar with contracting with the government. The OTA, or the other transaction agreement, is actually an alternative contracting methodology. It was established by Congress a long while ago, really, when they were doing like a race to space. Since then, DoD decided, had OT authority and wanted to kind of establish a mechanism to engage and utilize the OTA. So in 2015-16, they funded the establishment of MTEC. So the other transaction agreement really offers the government a variety of benefits. One, in that it enables open and transparent communication between industry, academia, and government funders, sponsors. It also kind of levels the playing field where we're now able to access emerging technology, the two-man shop out of the garage, the spin out of academia much earlier on, which allows you to have a more interactive partnership with the Department of Defense program managers so that you're developing a technology that ultimately has applicability in the Department of Defense, and that you're not just kind of, maturing something and then advancing it to the finish line, and then DoD coming in at the end point and saying, well, that's not rugged, it's not portable, it's not stable. We should have been kind of working together all along to meet all of the requirements. So this really is a version of a partnership between folks like you in academia or spin-outs out of academia and the government. The other transaction agreement is generally defined by what it's not. So it's not a grant, it's not a contract, not a cooperative agreement, and it operates outside of the federal acquisition regulations, which essentially allows for things to happen a bit more streamlined, a bit more flexible. And in that spirit, one of the major advantages of the OTA is once you get an award, you have the possibility to receive follow-on funding non-competitively. So a typical award through MTEC is about a couple $1 million for like a 1-2 year period of performance. If you're doing great work and the government has more money available, it's just really a negotiation with you to say, what's next? How much money do you need? and then kind of negotiate that and just add it on through a modification to your current award. So that $2 million for 2 years can now grow into $5 million for 3 years, 10 million to 5 years, and just kind of keep snowballing until you graduate out of a prototype, which essentially puts you at a final product. In addition, with the other transaction agreement, not only do you have the ability for that easy follow-on funding, but you have the ability to transition into a non-competitive follow-on production contract. So once you're ready for, we're talking probably down the road for most of you, but as your prototype really does kind of mature and get through some later stage clinical endpoints or later stage development endpoints, you really should, it is a huge advantage to just segue into that production contract. Again, just some stats. We're a members-based organization. University of Buffalo is one of these 700 members, which is great. You have to be a member in order to submit a proposal in response to any of our funding opportunities and take advantage of any of the other opportunities that MTEC offers. We already discussed the follow-on funding. We have over 360 projects on award and about 140 products in the pipeline. So who do we work with? Mainly, we were established by the Department of Defense, but this ecosystem of 700 plus member organizations, that innovation, that emerging tech base has now kind of gotten a bit of a reputation out there. So I think that over time, you're going to start to see MTEC support some other federal agencies outside of the Department of Defense. In addition, innovators like you guys, faculty members, and also a subset of service providers. So there are folks who are just providing expertise in cybersecurity, or they're CROs to help advance clinical trials, or reimbursement strategists to help you think about a CPT code once your technology, is commercialized, and how are you going to get reimbursed? So, there's also a slew of not only innovation, but wraparound services that should help you advance your technology and your business readiness as you continue to advance your technology. In addition, I mentioned we have 1.3 billion in federal funding. That's about 300 million in federal funding per year of new funding, and exponentially growing. We also have that private investor network. So very healthy in private investor network, as you saw by the 975 million that's following on. We have now a new website that just launched this week, which allows members to access all the profiles of our private investors. You can search them. If you're fundraising, you can actually designate your fundraising needs, and that gets showcased over to our private investor network. And it's just, I think MTEC is really just trying to enable a diversity of funding streams and make that available at your fingertips so that you can search for them, proactively outreach and engage, and hopefully have some success in many of these avenues of funding. So benefits to you guys as MTEC membership. As we mentioned, you have access to a variety of sources of funding, including non-dilutive government funding and private investment. In addition, MTEC does sponsor some funding programs as well. Like right now, we have a bridge loan program that's active. So sometimes there's some other, MTEC funded initiatives that you're able to take advantage of. It really does help you build a lot of strategic partnerships, whether it's with large companies, if you're thinking about strategic exits, or private investors, or CROs, or, some of the other services that are required to help you mature both your business and your technology. If you are spinning out a business, I'm sure University of Buffalo offers a great slew of services, but in addition, you could come to the MTEC to look for accounting services, legal, and other aspects, human resources, payroll, whatever it might be. In addition, there's a lot of networking and partnership opportunities with the government laboratories, other organizations like philanthropic groups, philanthropic funders, societies like AdvaMed, which is, for example, the society that advocates for medical device companies, or BIO, the society that advocates for therapeutics companies. And then again, education and mentorship. We do about 2 to 3 webinars per month where we're showcasing different topics, having experts talk to topics, or even having some members showcase their services or capabilities to the membership to be taken advantage of. We're a members-based organization. Of the 700, you could see that the majority is small business, and over 100 academics, like University of Buffalo, and then the rest are nonprofits, large businesses, and other organizations. We are an international funder. So if you are working with any groups that are international, they are able to be a subcontractor to you, or you can be a subcontractor to them. So I think MTech really is about kind of finding the best innovation to meet the unmet needs of the military and, regardless of where they are across the globe. We span the full spectrum of medical needs related to the warfighter. We operate under 6 major technology areas. So here, I'm just going to kind of briefly walk through these 6, but if anyone has any questions about them or what's in scope, what's out of scope, happy to entertain those, today, or we can have follow-up conversations to dive into any sort of details that you might be working on. Our military infectious diseases portfolio has traditionally kind of focused on combat wound infection, and then specific pathogens of interest to the military, like flaviviruses or bunyavirales or diarrheal disease, or specific things that are going to impact combat readiness or force readiness. Our combat casualty care portfolio is thinking about if you kind of think about what maybe the next conflict would look like with a peer or near peer, it's likely that casualties are going to be kind of on the battlefield or in that, battlefield setting for longer periods of time before they can get evacuated. If anyone's familiar with, evacuation protocols from the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, we were able to evacuate folks within an hour. So if someone was severely injured, they were going to get pretty good care within an hour. Now, if you think about maybe reverting back to like a World War II scenario where care is going to have to be more rugged, maybe more at the hands of a medic or less skilled folks to kind of care for mass numbers of casualties. So, our role here in MTech is how do you take great technology that we have in hospital or clinical settings? How do you ruggedize them? How do you get them easier to use by someone who's not as maybe trained, like a medic or a buddy care or, in a more rugged environment. So examples of technologies are, how do you diagnose traumatic brain injury objectively and non-invasively? How do you treat burns and blasts? How do you deal with loss of limbs? How do you deal with, hemorrhage? And then just stabilization and resuscitative care. And then even thinking about how do you integrate semi-autonomous care and autonomous care into that far forward setting, or even in the prolonged field care where they're out there for several hours to days before they can get evacuated, and even during what we call en route care is when they start moving through what we call the roles of care from that point of injury to, maybe a tent hospital, then to like a fixed facility clinical hospital. The military operational medicine portfolio is all about human performance. So just taking it all in, like how do you optimize physical, mental, cognitive performance? How do you prevent injury? We see a lot of musculoskeletal injury, a lot of mental health, issues. So how can you kind of screen if someone has experienced something? How do you provide them with the tools, especially if they're in a situation where they don't have communications easily? Making sure that you're offering a slew of self-help and connections to physicians or clinicians when they're able to. And then also providing information back to troop leaders so that they understand the readiness of their troop or squad. Medical information systems, training and simulation. This is basically thinking about, like, examples would be thinking about how do you integrate augmented reality, virtual reality, to maintain medical skills or, increase medical skills retention. If you think about trauma scenarios that you might see in combat, if you haven't been in war in a decade or more, or several decades, like, are your trauma surgeons going to be equipped and ready to deal with the injuries that you might see in a conflict if and when that was to happen? And then implementing training anywhere, anytime, telehealth capabilities as well. And then thinking about how do you partner the military system with the civilian health system so that you can understand how many beds are available. So when you're evacuating folks, where to send them to make sure that they get the best care for the wounds that they have. The next portfolio, clinical and rehabilitative medicine, is more, you could think about it, what is available in a normal US-based hospital. So these are probably, issues that are going to kind of go on and on. It's unlikely that you're going to have a quick return to duty here. If you think about someone who has, lost a limb or, this chronic pain as examples. So these are kind of things that are going to go on. And we do have a big regenerative medicine portfolio within MTEC as well that kind of spans extremity care, craniomaxillofacial care, regeneration, and other parts. And then the last pillar is chemical and biological threats. So here, traditionally, we focused on, because we have a pretty robust human performance portfolio where you think about wearables and other technology to mine the physiological health of the warfighter. So thinking about from a chem bio perspective, can you use that data that you're collecting to determine if someone's been exposed to some pathogen of some sort? How do you understand or sequence what that is quickly in the far forward, closer to the point of injury or the rugged environment? And then, how long do you have to quarantine, or, what maybe other, triage techniques or education do you want to provide to folks who are looking at that data? And then, because we are organized by those 6 pillars, I do like to kind of show you the breakdown in general. Almost there's probably an equal distribution amongst the focus areas, and the Chem Bio program, which is this yellow color or gold color. We just actually started funding about a year or year and a half ago. And I actually I'll tell you about it a little later, but probably 2 topics that are coming. So there's more work. So I think we're exponentially kind of growing in this Chem Bio space. Number of awards, you can see that these are growing. For 2025, we operate on a fiscal year. So you'll see by September 30th, this number will kind of pop up quickly. So right now it's at about 360, but it's likely we do about 50 to 60 new awards per year, equaling about 300 million. And then I just like to point out for you guys who are sitting in the university setting, because I do talk a lot about small business and the importance of commercial readiness. Of these 360 awards, 100 of them have gone to higher education as prime contractors. And then this number kind of increases dramatically as you think about all the organizations who have received awards as prime contractors and have academics as subs. So this is excluding all of the academics that are included as subcontractors to the other awards. So I think that MTEC is a very healthy ecosystem for academia to do very well, even both as a prime contractor and as a subcontractor. And then I did mention that we were established by the U.S. Army Medical Research and Development Command, now the DHA. And I wanted to make sure that you understand that we actually have made it intention to kind of diversify the DoD sponsors who are utilizing the MTEC vehicle and this tool in their toolbox. So you can see that there is now there's a wide range of folks from the DoD who are using MTEC, ranging from all of the aspects of the U.S. Army Medical Research and Development Command, multiple folks on the Navy side, the Air Force, the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, various, DHA or Army laboratories, for an example, the National Guard. So you can see that it's a bit diversified on who is putting programs through MTEC. And every time we put out a funding opportunity, you'll see who that, which of these groups are, and we're constantly adding new groups, who is actually funding that funding opportunity. So we talk a lot about awards, and I just want to emphasize that for you to get an award through MTEC, you have to submit a proposal in response to an open funding opportunity. So topics and funding opportunities kind of happen in 2 ways. One, in that the government might, have an immediate need and say, okay, MTEC, we need to solicit for a chemical sterilant. Here's how much money I have. Let's go out to the MTEC ecosystem. We believe that in that 740 member ecosystem, you have some solutions that we can certainly benefit from. So we're going to put out a funding opportunity with that topic and go from there. The other thing I like to emphasize is that because we're operating under an other transaction agreement, you have the ability for open and transparent communication, and MTEC enables a variety of times throughout the year to take advantage of that. That means that you have the ability to talk to the government funders who are putting those topics into those funding opportunities to get them excited about what it is that you're working on, make sure that you are aligned with some military priorities, and MTEC can help you with that as well, and that you're showcasing who you are, what you have, and then hopefully kind of influencing your topic to end up in a future request for proposals. So it works both ways. The government, I'm sure, everyone reads the news, and there is, a lot of reduction in workforce. So, a lot of government folks are doing the best they can to keep a pulse on innovation, but it's kind of impractical to assume that they are tracking every innovation that happens and the many, many needs that they need to kind of fill with medical solutions. So I think it's your job to make sure that they're educated on cutting edge research, cutting edge innovation that pertains to military needs, and get that in front of them and get them excited about it. And this MTEC and the OTA is a great opportunity to do that in a kind of more closed setting. In addition, we do have the funding up, and let me just go back 1 second. So we put out a request for proposal, then we actually hold a public webinar. It's called a proposers conference. So for some of the solicitations that are out right now, you'll see that they come with a date and time and a registration link where you can actually attend a proposers conference. At the proposers conference, MTEC does an administrative overview of the solicitation. In addition, we have the government sponsor talk to the technical requirements of that solicitation, and then it's open for Q&A. So you can ask whatever questions. We'll answer as many questions as we can. And if we need to get back to you on a question, we will. And then we post a Q&A of that proposers conference. So I really encourage, take advantage of getting all the information you need. Part of what a lot of folks struggle with when responding to government funding opportunities is they feel they're just putting in a proposal without knowing what the government is looking for. Please do not do that here. You have the ability to ask as many questions as you want. We will help determine if you are a fit for a solicitation. There's no reason for you to kind of throw a dart on the wall and hope that you fit and kind of waste your effort in putting together a proposal when from the get-go you weren't in good alignment. So please take advantage of the proposers conference. You can hear directly from the sponsor and ask your questions to MTEC to make sure you're getting clarification. Then you go ahead and you submit your proposal. So the prime contractor, as we mentioned earlier, has to be a member of MTEC to submit. However, if you bring subcontractors in, your subcontractors do not need to be MTEC members. So if you need to partner with others and they're not members, don't let that hold you up. Just get your proposal in. And most time we do something called an enhanced white paper. The enhanced white paper is a 10-page abbreviated proposal. So it's mainly, we have templates that are always included in the funding announcements. They're pretty streamlined, so you have to be kind of concise on what you're kind of stating there. And then it includes a rough order magnitude pricing. Your rough order magnitude pricing should not significantly deviate from what a full detailed cost proposal. So for example, you shouldn't say, submit a rough order magnitude or a RUM for $1 million. And then if you get selected for funding, come back and say, well, oh, sorry, it actually cost me 1.5 million or 2 million or 5 million. That is not encouraged. Please do not do that. So although it's a rough order magnitude pricing, you don't need the detailed cost, but you should have some sensible, sensible idea of what it actually would cost you if you got selected for funding. The government does evaluations of your proposals and then either not selects you, or puts you into a basket. The basket is a place where they can hold competitively evaluated, technically good proposals. So in the event that funding becomes available at a later time, whether another project independent of what you just applied for maybe isn't doing so great, gets terminated, money becomes available, maybe it gets realigned and we get to pull something out of the basket, or DoD suddenly comes up with some money or money gets passed along that they need to kind of deploy quickly, they'll look into the basket and say, oh, I loved that proposal. Now it's the time I want to pull it out and negotiate, get it on award. For an enhanced white paper, if you get selected for award, then you are invited to submit a full detailed cost proposal. And then that goes right into negotiation. So you'll negotiate with the government your statement of work concurrent with MTEC contracting, doing a deep dive into your detailed cost proposal. So both of those processes happen concurrently, and then that funnels into a project award. So for example, if you're wondering timeline wise, so we have solicitations that just went out this week, and you will be, if anyone's selected for an award, you would get an award by September 30th. So it's a fairly quick process compared to other contracting methodologies that you might be used to. Maybe I'll pause did any questions come in? Do you want me to take questions, or do you want me to just kind of continue on?
I have one question.
Sure.
And then you can continue on, just because it was just what you were talking about. So how would faculty get access to upcoming solicitations? So I see them because being a member, I have, I'm registered to receive whenever there's an open opportunity. But how would faculty go about getting linked up to MTEC and getting their emails and subscriptions?
Yeah, so it can work, so universities are so complex and each one works differently.
Mhm.
I think one option is that, there is a POC sometime at the VP, the provost's office, or VP of research, who is distributing our solicitations out to the faculty community. Sometimes there's like a center of innovation that kind of knows folks who are, working in our space, who will like target specific faculty. And then the third option is that any faculty member who's interested in MTEC can just go to our website, and then there's a place where you can join the mailing list. So if you get on that info listserv, you'll see all of our announcements as well. We also post everything to sam.gov as well. So if anyone is looking through, I don't know how many folks, at the university kind of monitor that. I know grants.gov, they probably do, but I would just say probably easiest is for folks to just go to our website, join the mailing list themselves, so that they don't have to rely on like the university's like MTEC membership point of contact to always funnel things out.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So we did talk about a lot of these, we're a source of non-dilutive funding. We really do enable the government, industry, academia engagement. We are a service provider network. And I kind of want to just talk about that for a second, because you are a university, and the universities tend to offer both sides of the house, right? You have faculty who are working on specific technologies that have military relevance, and they want to seek funding to advance their, technology to the next level. And that's great. The alternative, or second option, is that maybe you guys have capabilities that you want to partner with others on. So if we are now, if we're soliciting for traumatic brain injury, novel therapeutic approach, and you have a porcine traumatic brain injury model, and you want to collaborate with small companies who have novel compounds, MTEC can be a place where we can help you advertise that. And then University of Buffalo, because it could essentially end up as a subcontractor on like 20 proposals that get submitted. So, I use that as an example, but most universities have so many great capabilities, whether it's like GMP manufacturing, maybe they have a medical school or can serve as a clinical site for clinical trials. They have specific like non-human primate laboratory models that they want to offer, whatever it might be. But I just want to plant the seed that many times academics have other offerings besides just relying on the faculty that maybe are doing innovation in the military setting. We talked about the private investor network and the bridge loans. We do also a lot of co-funding with foundations. So sometimes you'll see solicitations go out, like we did one on musculoskeletal injury recently, where we had the Orthopedic Research and Education Foundation, who contributed money to the effort alongside the government and co-funded projects through MTEC. So there's a variety of opportunities that kind of pop up along the way where we can kind of help connect other funders into the mix. We also, as you kind of mature your technologies, we do provide a variety of opportunities for you to do technology demonstrations to various government users. So some folks are always wondering, like, how do I show the government what I have? Like, I have the next best non-invasive diagnostic for traumatic brain injury, but like I want to show someone, who do I show? So MTEC could be a place to help you. We do technology landscapes, prize competitions that offer money to, MTEC members. We can help with transition across the government, and, just helping you kind of navigate the military world if it's unfamiliar to you. Member profiles. I wanted to call this out because the MTEC website did just go live. So on our new website, As a member, there is someone who already has an account, but if other folks at the university need access to the account so that they can navigate the full extent of the MTech website, some of it is hidden kind of, you have to be able to log in. So just let us know who at the university might need access. But each of you have a member profile. So in the member page of the website, you can sort our membership by a taxonomy. You could use a Google-like search bar, and then it'll give you various members that match your search. So University of Buffalo has one of these. If you click on this, then you get a member profile that we use AI to kind of scrape your public-facing website. We create a summary and what you do, key people, and then you can designate if you're fundraising or not for specific projects. But because you have different faculty, you might want to kind of modify. There's an editorial function as well. So folks can, if you're working on a non-invasive diagnostic for traumatic brain injury, you can go in the what we do section and create a tile that talks about that innovation, or as many innovations as you think that you want to showcase from the university, because this portal is not only searchable by other MTEC members when they're looking to partner, but also by the government. So if the government's looking and says, hey, Lauren, like I want to use the MTEC vehicle to do chemical sterilants. If I type in chemical sterilants, but like you would want, if you guys are working on that, you'd want that to be in your profile so that our search reveals, oh, University of Buffalo has a cool solution for, a new chemical sterilant. That's interesting. So I would encourage you to kind of populate your member profile to the best of your ability, and you can constantly evolve it and change it as you go, but make sure to take advantage of that. I wanted to talk a little bit about the scope. So the other transaction agreement, we operate in the prototype space. That means that anything that we fund has to have some demonstration of a proof of concept. So you might have done your first rodent study, but we don't do any of these. Like if you have a brand new idea or very, very, very early, that's kind of out of scope for us. We're really in this like middle scope where you're going from transitioning into maybe more rodent models or optimization of dose, and then segueing into a large animal model, and then studies required for an IND or an IDE to get through like regulatory for a clinical study or human subject study, or human subject testing or relevant environments, operational settings. That kind of work is our scope. And then I mentioned prototype, and folks tend to kind of go toward like a tangible widget, but the definition of a prototype is actually quite broad. So it's medical device therapeutics, IT algorithms, predictive algorithms, manufacturing capabilities, model developments, clinical practice guidelines, business practices, integration. So really, I would not, most likely, whatever you're working on, I am yet to come across someone who does not fit the prototype definition, unless you are literally a new idea with no data, then you would be research. I'm going to just skip here and just kind of pivot over to our near-term topics for funding, to give you a heads up on what is already out on the street and what is coming very, very shortly. So predictive model for post-traumatic stress. This is really looking for AI, machine learning, predictive algorithm development in a containerized, something that can be plugged into the military health system. That will release imminently. I mean, probably no later than Tuesday. The pre-announcement is already publicly available. You can just go to this website for more details. Modernization of prototypes. This is called XMed Modernize. The solicitation was released this week, and there's a due date of mid-June. And basically what this is looking for, and I think a university could actually be a very good applicant here. When you think about the Navy ship scenario, there's a whole bunch of resuscitative care, dental care that's already available, stabilization. Now we're modernizing the Navy ship and kind of re-envisioning what that looks like. And we're looking for a group that can do testing, evaluation of all of these current technologies that exist, and then recommending what are improvements that need to be made to integrate or modernize to plug them into the new Navy ship scenario. So this is a really will be a very tight partnership with Expeditionary Medicine on the Navy side, and you guys will be working together to kind of sort through how are you going to adapt these technologies for the new Navy ship environment. We have a program that should release within the next couple of weeks on advanced medical monitoring. So I would stand by for a pre-announcement to go out on that. Use of pharmacogenomics in the military health system. Here, it's a pilot program. We have a whole bunch of data that we're willing to give to a group who can mine the data, use algorithmic development to basically create an API that can plug into the EHR on the military side, but we want to make sure that we're reducing adverse drug reactions, drug-drug interactions, increasing clinical outcomes or improving clinical outcomes, and looking at the cost-benefit relationship. So this is kind of the first pilot program that the Defense Health Agency is looking to fund to try and start to really integrate pharmacogenomics into the military health system. And that is an active solicitation right now. For both pharmacogenomics and for this expeditionary medicine, there are proposers conferences that are already scheduled. So go to the solicitations page, you'll get the registration links, and feel free to register for those to find out more and hear directly from the government sponsor. And feel free to ask me any questions that you have. In addition, we'll likely have a combat casualty care solicitation that'll go out in the fall. That'll probably cover things like traumatic brain injury, burn care, autonomous care, prolonged field care, all of the things that we spoke about when we talked about the combat casualty care topic area. Another one is the cognitive assessment tools. I think that'll be a funding opportunity that goes out in the next couple of weeks. Don't have much detail on that yet, but in that we're looking for a group to come in with the ability to analyze the cognitive ability of our warfighters. And then two other opportunities that are likely to come through in the next couple of weeks as well. One would be a biologics on demand manufacturing system. And then another would be if you've been exposed to some unknown pathogen, maybe integrating some capabilities into a system that would do some sequencing or identification of those chem bio threats in the more far forward scenario. So that is what I have. Here's my contact info, and then also my colleague, Chris Steele, who's the Chief of Business Development and Strategy. He just retired commander out of the Navy, also has been on the other side a user of the MTEC. So between the two of us, I think you have some really great resources here, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have either today or along the way at any time. Another thing I want to just give a plug before we open it up to questions. In July 17th, 18th, we're going to do an MTEC Defense Innovation Summit in downtown DC. This is an opportunity for you to hear communication directly from the various sponsors, government funders that I kind of showed you on that slide earlier. They'll talk about what's going on in their world, their priorities, and then give you an opportunity to engage directly, as we talked about, to take advantage of that open and transparent communication. In addition, it's an opportunity for MTEC to advocate for military medicine. I don't know if any of you follow the congressionally directed medical research programs. I know maybe you had a webinar with them yesterday, but they did kind of suffer a pretty big hit this year in funding. And basically of their portfolios, almost all of the trauma programs were stripped out except for military burns. So MTEC is just trying to raise awareness of how important it is for military medicine and traumatic injury funding so that we have our warfighters ready to go and as healthy as possible and treating their wounds if the unfortunate event happens that we have to engage in conflict. So I will pause and maybe I'll stop I'll keep sharing, but I will see if I can go on camera.
So we do have a couple questions from Jill. The first question is, do we need a company / IP in place to be competitive, would you say?
You do not need a company. There are many universities who submit as is. IP, it depends on what solution you're trying, like what the funding opportunity is and how mature we're looking. So like for the integration one that I spoke about, the expeditionary medicine modernization, there's no IP expected of you. We're really looking for a partner who's going to be kind of using their intellect, their cerebral power to kind of test, evaluate, and then recommend what those improvements need to be to fit into that new Navy ship. So it really depends on the funding opportunity. If we're looking for something to transition, sometimes we're like, we want a new traumatic brain injury therapeutic that's ready for a phase 2 clinical trial. Unless you're suggesting something that's repurposed, you would I would hope you would have IP at that point if you're ready for a phase 2 clinical trial, right? So like it really depends on the maturity of the program that we're soliciting for.
The second question is, we have clinical practice guidelines and next gen prototype device. How do we begin finding a fit with MTEC?
So I would have to know what, what it is that you are working in, like a next gen prototype, next generation of prototype for what would be my question. So I think we could, yeah, we would have to just talk more about what that
Okay.
is.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know, Jill, if you wanted to speak more about that. Otherwise, I have a question. Oh. Hey there.
Hi. Hi. Yeah, sorry. That was actually from Praveen. So I was sharing his questions. But I'm curious, Lauren, in the past, we have an alum at UB who has really been very successful in navigating the space that you're situated in. And he was actually advising, he was kind of also building a bridge between investigators and DoD funding opportunity. And I am so sorry, I can hear that. But the question is, the success rates, once there seemed to find a fit, they seemed quite strong. Is that the case? Is that what you typically see?
Yeah, so because the various programs range in maturity level, so if you look at something like an expeditionary medicine modernization effort that's very mature, looking for very like a capability, I don't think that you're going to compete with like hundreds of proposals, right? These are like some of these are very targeted. Or if we're soliciting for a novel compounds ready for phase 2 clinical trials, like how many of those exist, right? So I think it depends on so I think the success rate could be very high depending on what are you responding to. If you're responding to, some of our calls are very early, like we talked about some of the TRL technology readiness level 3, something that like just is still in rodent models and we're allowing, that. So there could be more like investigative interest and, I think it'll widen the pool. So I think it really depends on the solicitation that you are responding to and how, what does the competitive landscape actually look like? And some of these are fairly mature, so or focus that, your potential for success is actually very high.
Can I follow up and ask? So have you seen, because UB has not typically been situated in this space in the past, but we're very appreciative of the opportunity and thankful to you for taking the time to school us a bit today. Are you generally seeing the trend? And I looked at the list on your organization's website of people that have been funded and the projects that have been funded. And I didn't look closely enough to see specifically where they were, but is it really like the big power research organizations and hubs, or is it really more investigator and project fit oriented?
So it's all about the solution to the need that we're going after. So, and part of the other transaction agreement, really the intent on why it's there is to actually access new innovation. So I think part of like why this whole thing even exists is that I think the government wants exposure. They want to see what other folks are doing. They want to hear about the companies that they never heard about. They want to hear from the investigators that they haven't seen, respond to submit proposals and other mechanisms over and over again, right? Like part of this actually is a great opportunity for new investigators to showcase what it is that they have and have a high likelihood of success, or not be dinged because of that.
Okay.
This is an open level playing field for that new innovation. So this is the right place for folks who have not played a lot with the government, because that is really essentially the whole intent behind it.
Thank
And
you.
it really, you're evaluated based on like, what is the fit of what it is that you're proposing for that need? So, and do you have the resources and capabilities and facilities and expertise to execute what it is that you just proposed that you're going to do? So as long as like your story comes together, right? That you're not proposing to do a pharmacogenomics effort, but you have no one on your team that's ever done pharmacogenomics, right? Like you just logically like have to plug the holes. And that's why like the partnering aspect is so important. But as long as you partner, and I would say like most of our funded awards are to actually multi-institutional groups. So you'll have like a prime, which you see on the website, but most of those all have subcontractors involved because it's
Okay.
very difficult as you like advance in maturity to be able to do it all.
Yeah, I mean, they're big projects, right? So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And a lot of times you see like the university startup relationship as well, where like a startup will spin out of the university, but they still want to lean on the expertise of the university to be a subcontractor, or vice versa, where the university will be the prime and then that small startup will be a sub, just so that they both kind of like continue the technology maturation together.
So I was going to say that's a good lead into my question. Thank you for a great presentation. This is really good information.
Sure.
So I actually asked that question. So if I can follow up, we do have a startup that came out of the lab and is trying to promote the technology. The key question for this kind of and we've been doing a lot of academic grants, which are obviously application based, whether it's concussion, whether it's burn injuries, mostly CDMRP, but also the NIH and more recently the DARPA solicitations. So would MTEC be more application driven or would it be more technology driven?
Application driven. So yeah, for 9 times out of 10, there were a couple, like we mentioned, the expeditionary medicine one, it's a little different, right? Because you're not expected to bring, but mostly we're funding, we're funding the development of something toward an indication that is of high military relevance. So like someone will say, I can diagnose ischemic stroke. And I will say, well, it's can you also diagnose traumatic brain injury with that same technology? Because you probably have a higher likelihood of getting funded for diagnosing a TBI rather than like a stroke.
Great,
even
because
though it could be like the
got it.
same
Yeah.
technology. Yeah.
So the technology to be very specific, and I'll follow up via email. Are you the right person to email about this? Or,
Yep, sure. Yes.
Yeah. And do I send like a one pager or just the raw data or how?
Yeah,
what
you could send a
would-
pitch deck, you could send a presentation, a one pager, but we'll probably likely have a conversation about it and you can present it to us so that we
Perfect.
can, yeah.
Great, because we have clinical practice guidelines, but that is for like one specific application. But we've been
Yeah.
focused on developing the technology platform, which has multiple indications. So
Yeah.
we've been trying to target the solicitations based on mostly the application. But we think like this mechanism would be great to develop the platform itself. So I'll reach
Yeah.
out to you.
Yeah, and you could always like strategically develop the platform while going for kind of an indication. But the clinical practice guidelines, like we tend to be sometimes like specific if we're soliciting for like we've solicited many times to try and get like updated clinical practice guidelines for how to take care of infected traumatic wounds. And med schools or physicians are like really the right place to go for that kind of like improvement to our clinical practice guidelines. Or concussion protocols, for example. We have the big NCAA DoD co-funded care consortium that's like $25 million plus program longitudinally following those cohorts. And part of it is improving clinical practice guidelines. When do you evacuate? When do you return someone to duty? And so on.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Any other questions? Okay. I think we're good. Thank you. Thank you so much. This is really, really helpful. And I really hope that we can get the word out a little bit more that we are a member and to take advantage of this. So I really
Sure.
appreciate it.
Do you want me to send you these slides? Like, do you want to distribute them to folks, or I'm happy to do that if that's helpful.
What we do, sure. Yeah, that would be great. And then we also post it, just so you know, on our YouTube channel. So we now
Okay.
have a YouTube channel, so.
Awesome.
As long as
Great.
you're okay with that.
Yes, as
Oh.
long as you're okay with that.
That's fine. Sure. No problem.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Lauren. It was a great talk
Great.
and we really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity. And you know how to find me if anyone has any questions. Happy to talk with whoever, whenever. And I hope you all have a good Memorial Day weekend.